man, when you give a dirt bike to somebody, like the smile on their face and like just how grateful they are, that
Man.
is really, really special. And what are the next steps? And I think that's important for us as parents and as maybe even community leaders, because obviously you're the leader of a community, whether or not you realize that you're building your own community and you've been building it for years and you're a leader in that. And what we want to do is try to educate people and say, well, here are some of the possibilities. Here are some of the challenges that you're going to have. And here are some of the, the ways that you can overcome these challenges.
Yeah.
And I feel like, in business, really what we have to do is if we want to make it in business, we've got to solve people's problems.
Yes.
People have a problem and we have to come up with a solution or a product that solves that problem. And
Yes.
mine's a little murky because a lot of it is me. I'm just like infotainment or whatever, but I'm helping people to, okay, you're going to buy a $10,000 dirt bike. I'm going to help you understand what this bike is for, where it works well, where maybe it doesn't work well, and help you to almost be like a consultant for you in this big time purchase that you're going to make.
Such a good way to put it. Consultant. I love that.
Like a consultant. And I allow people to call me. Like I have a few time slots on my calendar where it's like, hey, sign up for this call. And come with your questions. Have them written down because we're going to have 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on what type of a call you sign up for. But we need to help. We need to help people answer those questions and get the experiences that they need. And I believe that is what you're trying to do with the collective experience. And I really, really respect that, especially where it's hard. And I'm sure that you've come up with times where there are probably times where like, dude, I don't know if this is going to work, but you still dig deep and you're like, I like this and I like what I'm building and I believe in it. And so I'm going to continue to go. And so much of it is just not quitting. Right. I mean, have you noticed that like so much of success in whatever classification we use is just not giving up? Have you noticed that?
100%. And I know us moto people, we can kind of get mired down with one track mind, but I always try to relate it to like moto. Like you never quit. You never give up. You fight till the very end and keep going past that. I think a lot of those fundamentals carry over for business, life, relationships, stuff like that. And I've noticed that a big time in with the business. It's just, if you just keep pushing, keep going, just never say die. I mean, that's when you start seeing the benefits of the effort, right? So no, I 100% believe that. And thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's very rewarding, I'll say. And I'm sure you get the same thing when someone's like, oh man, because of your program, I realized my dream was XYZ. And now I get a chance to put steps forward towards my dream. Or, hey, because of the program, I was able to have a once in a lifetime opportunity with my kids, getting up close and personal on a rig tour. We will never forget that. Stuff like that. I'm just like, man, this is so cool that, we're able to have even the opportunity to be able to help somebody who loves the sport just as much as I do to make these memories. You know what I mean? Because to me, one of the cooler parts of the sport is, we like winning races and going fast, but like the memories we make doing this cool sport with the people we care about, that's what's rad to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love one of the things I love about our sport, and we talked about it. One of the other conversations we've had kind of leading up to this is one of the great things that we've had in our sport for so long is just the access to riders. It's you can get closer access to a motocross or a supercross rider or an off-road enduro rider than you can to say Tom Brady. I mean, you're not going to get within 30 feet of Tom Brady, but in our sport, we've been able to do autograph signings and different things. Hopefully some of that comes back after COVID really dies down a bit. But it's important because there's all these little kids that will meet these riders. And, I can't remember if I told you this story, but you're good buddies with AJ Catanzaro, right?
Yep.
So I'm talking with AJ in the pits. I just walked up to introduce myself in Salt Lake City here in 2021. And there was something that AJ did that was really cool. AJ became aware that while him and I, and he and my wife and AJ were kind of talking, kind of like, face to face or whatever. And he had the presence of mind to notice that this little kid had walked up,
Mhm.
you know, and the kid had been standing there. As I started to think about it, I'm like, I think that kid's been standing there for 20 seconds, maybe 30, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And AJ being, you know, a professional
Mhm.
and understanding
Mhm.
kind of what one of his big roles is,
Yeah.
he just says to me, he's like, hey, hold on for just a minute.
Mhm.
Like, hold on for just a second. And then he turns and
Mhm.
he gets down and he, like, you know, addresses this kid. And I was like, man, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I think there's a lot of people like that in the sport.
Yeah.
And it's important because it doesn't really, whatever me and AJ were talking about, you know, that's probably not going to change my life.
Mhm.
But him taking the time to just like kneel down to this kid, I mean, that can change that kid's life, you know? And I feel like we probably have opportunities like that almost daily in our lives. And we need to be looking for them. And we need to know when they're happening. And maybe it's not going to be, you know, that dramatic or whatever. And maybe I'm over dramatizing this situation. But to me, it was special. It was neat because I was like, this is an example of, you know, somebody who's understands that people are looking up to him.
Yeah.
And he needs to take, you know, give respect to that responsibility and make a difference for this kid. And I think one of the reasons why he's able to do that is because he isn't like the Eli Tomac with all of the amazing pressure on him.
Yeah.
You know, those guys, it would be so hard. And so it's kind of neat that we have all these different levels in our sport. And that's something that I think, you know, TCE, I don't know if you boil it down to TCE, but
Sometimes,
I think that's something that your business can really help to do, is to help to highlight the blue collar workers of racing and this industry, because they're not getting the same type of credit. You know, the Alex Rays and the AJ Catanzaros and the Seven Deuce Deuce, these types of people, they're not getting as much publicity and as many sponsors, but they have so much value to add. And these types of guys are better riders than any of us regular people will ever be.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think we need to celebrate that. And that's one of the things I like about what you're doing. And also kind of what I'm doing is celebrating the everyday rider, because 99% of us are just the everyday riders, you know. And if we only ever give, you know, credibility to the Eli Tomacs and the Cooper Webbs and the Ken Roxons and the Ryan Dungies, man, we're kind of missing the boat. And we've done that for a long time in our industry. Everyone knows who Ricky Carmichael is, you know, but very fewer people know who Kevin Windham is, and fewer people know who, you know, on down the line are. But yeah, these are all amazing people with amazing stories. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice when we're not looking at everyone, you know, at every level of our support or sport, and just give them props for what they're doing, you know?
Oh, 100%. And that's why I love working with these support riders or privateer riders, is because they don't have this, you know, the big stardom, the egos behind them. They're not, you know, they don't have a million and one tasks to do, like autograph and then this sponsor obligation. That they're doing it for love of the sport. They're doing it because they, you know, they want to make a dream come true. And man, if they're not grateful for every person that comes up to them, they love talking to every single person. I always tell the story of, like, you know, helping out Seven Deuce a couple of years ago, and the guy almost missed a race because he was just talking to fans for so long. It's like, dude, we gotta go. You know what I mean? Like, and he was just so happy and so excited, just as excited to see a kid go, hey, Seven Deuce. He was like, hey, what's up, buddy? He was just so stoked on it. And like, I mean, you don't typically see that from the top tier riders. I mean, nothing against them. They're just, their job is to win and they're so focused. But man, the privateers, they're these blue collar workers, they're of the sport. They're so into it. And I love seeing that. One thing I want to talk about and touch on is you do some freaking awesome giveaways, man. And talk about bonus points for the everyday rider. These giveaways are freaking phenomenal. They're super cool. You just did one where it was 3 bikes, 3 different genres of motorcycle that we typically don't really see too often. How did you get started with the giveaways, man? And what was your goal with these originally?
So yeah, I mean, I buy the bikes at full price. There was a couple bikes back in the day that KTM would give me a little bit of a discount on, but I mean, it was like $1,000 off of already a $9,000 or $10,000 motorcycle, and then I had to wait like 6 months. So I bought like two of them, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work fast enough. So I'm buying them all at full price, and I would do the YouTube videos, and then I would sell them. And I still have the spreadsheet and I would show how much I lose on them and, how much like the depreciation would be per month. And I'm like, man, I'm losing money on these things, but at the same time, I'm making it back on YouTube ad revenue or like parts, links or whatever. But I'm always looking for different revenue streams with my business. I don't make enough off YouTube ad revenue to, pay the bills. It just 6-7 years in, it's just getting to the point where it's like, okay, the ad revenue is really moving the needle and I can start to feel like it's one of the revenue streams, but for so long it wasn't. And so, talking with a lot of different friends and just kind of looking at different things that are happening, I saw this company called Diesel Brothers. And maybe a lot of you guys have heard of them, and they were doing these giveaways where they build these amazing trucks, diesel trucks or whatever, Ford, Chevys, Rams or whatever, and then give them away. You'd go to their website, you'd pay $5, you'd get an entry. And I'm like, maybe that would work, and I had a couple friends that were talking to me about it. And I'm just like, I'm just going to go out and buy a Sherco. The first one I bought was a Sherco, a French motorcycle. And we tried it and it made money, And so I'm like, let's continue to do that. And some people are like, oh, the only reason you're doing it is to make money. It's like, well, I'm doing it. I continue to do it because it is a revenue stream.
Yeah.
It's a good way. It's a good way for me to go out, buy the bikes, stay unbiased because I don't have to ask KTM or I don't have to ask Yamaha or whatever for any of these bikes. I just go out and buy them retail, ride it, review it, and then turn around and, allow people to buy things off my website and now even buy things off my links for Rocky Mountain ATV, and possibly win a motorcycle. And most of the people and I've given away 16 bikes now. 2 of them are being shipped tomorrow. I've got moto shippers coming tomorrow to pick them up. And then the other one, I've got to drive and meet the guy in Colorado. And I have given away bikes everywhere from California to Connecticut, like literally, and everywhere in between. And it's been fun. It's stressful. It's a lot of work. I've had to hire an assistant just to help me with like customer service emails because, you're selling shirts or hats or whatever. It's like, okay, this shirt was the wrong size. Or this, here's a shirt. We ordered 1,000 shirts. A couple of them have stitching that's coming undone. And we don't find that out until the customer gets it. And I want those people to get a refund like that. I want to treat everyone. If you come to my website and you buy something, I want to treat you how I want to be treated. And it's going to cost me more money to make that happen. But that's how I want to build the business. I used to like when you'd order something from me, I used to have it like what we call it's like on-demand printing or whatever. What that means is you order it now and I'll wait for like a week until I get maybe 100 orders. And then I'll send those 100 orders to the printer and then they'll get printed and then packaged and they go to the fulfillment warehouse and then they get shipped out. And the end result of that is you might not get your shirt for 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'm like, I don't like that customer experience. So then I'm dumping everything back into my business. Like you buy something from me, I'm not going off and buying a new truck. I'm buying the same truck that I had from 3 years ago. Eventually I'll need one, but I'm not going off and we're not, buying boats or whatever. I still have a boat, but it was the boat I bought before we had this channel. I'm just dumping it all back in. It's what that means is now I'm buying I'll buy 500 or 1,000 shirts at a time based off of my best guess of what sizes I need. I kind of know what the sizes are on my, I know the shirt sizes of the people in my demographic. I know kind of what I need to buy. And so I buy all this stuff in advance. And that way, if you buy a shirt from me off dirtbikechannel.com or gloves or whatever, it's sent out to you just like that. We send it out. I pay a fulfillment company here in Utah good money and they're good and you'll get it within a couple of days. And so I've just kind of built it over time and some of the giveaways do better than others. I mean, I found out that street bike we gave away, it was a KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. I don't think that really resonated quite as well with my channel, so it was fun to do, but I'm looking at that and I'm going, well, people didn't really get into that one as much, so I'm learning things all the time. I'm starting now to offer shorter sweepstakes and things, but it's just a really fun way to perpetuate the business. It's, it's a revenue stream is what it is. And it gives Man, when you give a dirt bike to somebody, like the smile on their face and like just how grateful they are, that
Man,
is really, really special. And
it's incredible.
yeah, and I wish I could meet everybody face to face. Two of the three bikes that I gave away this last time are going, one of them's going to Alabama and one's going to North Carolina. I don't get to meet those people first, face to face.
Yeah.
And that's the only downside, is that I can't meet everybody, but just, I got a family. I mean, it would be super nice if I could fly out and meet people every time. And maybe in the future I can do that. But for now, I'm just trying to make it work. So we're not blowing too much money. We're able to make some money. And then all that money, anything that we make on top of this literally just is going back into the business. I'm only pulling enough money out to pay my mortgage, to pay my electricity bill, to pay my internet bill, to buy camera equipment. Everything else is staying in the business to try to build it and make it viable for the future.
That's awesome. And in turn help more people, which I think is really cool. Yeah, the giveaways are cool. I mean, like I said, I'm buying in now all the giveaways because they're super. I think they're great. They're really well done, and I love what they offer. Even though the KTM, the street bike, didn't do too good, it was still super cool to see a different kind of bike thrown in the mix. So I thought it was pretty rad. But where do you see the channel ending up? Like, what's your end goal, or where would you like to see your channel, I guess, sort of venture into? And maybe even a bigger question, where do you see the industry changing to as well?
Yeah, so with the channel, I mean, that's a tough question, but I would like to grow it to the point where I've got various people helping me make content. Even my sons, I would in a perfect world, it would become over the next 5 to 10 years big enough where it's expanded to the point where kind of Case has his own section of it and Connor has his own section of it, and they're kind of like my test riders. And I can say, hey, look, we bought this motorcycle. Case went out, he tested, he's 10 now, but he went out and he did all these things with it, and here's what he thinks about it. And maybe he's 17 and he's like, okay, this is what a 17-year-old thinks about this motorcycle, and kind of really get that in there, because I'm 40. It would be easier for a 17-year-old or a 16 or a 14-year-old to relate to my son. And so that's something I think we could do better and should do better. And if we can get it to the point where, it's a business that we can, keep in the family, that would be really, really great. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen. As far as where the industry is going, right now, it kind of had this big explosion with COVID. Everyone was told to go outside and social distance. And so everything from motorcycles to campers and everything else kind of exploded in the industry. You've seen it. Dealers don't have bikes anymore. It's like you get on a waiting list. You used to be able to go down to a showroom and like sit on bikes. Now it's like you call the dealer and you say, how long is your list of deposits for this motorcycle that I'm interested in?
Exactly.
And that, I don't know how much longer that can sustain. And even the used bikes, like used bike prices went way up because everybody bought them all.
Crazy.
And I feel like it's not going to last. I do think it's a good bump, and I feel like the industry has been leveled up a little bit. But my gut feeling is it's got to correct itself just somewhat, because there's only a limited number of places that we can even ride these things. So unless we opened up more motocross tracks, or B, open up more public land, or at least private areas where people can ride, we're going to have a little bit of a growing pain. And I also look at the electric bikes. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, it feels like some of the, a lot of the manufacturers have tried to bring in an electric motorcycle. Let's just be honest. They've failed. They've gone bankrupt. I think they're close to being able to offer an electric dirt bike, but I personally want to see them have clutches on the bikes. I want to have clutches, and I want to have hot swappable batteries. I know there's a couple manufacturers out there that are offering, like, they're not really dirt bikes, but they're like it's almost like a really, really beefy mountain bike that's electric. I can't even think of what the names are off the top of my head, but they have hot swappable batteries. But the thing that they don't have is a clutch. And I don't want to hear the excuse of like, well, you don't need a clutch because it's an electric motor. It has all the torque down low. And I'm going, this isn't about having the torque. This is about being able to modulate the power with your finger so that you can build power up in the flywheel, or store energy is what I mean. Store energy in the flywheel and then dump it at a certain time so that you can do like trials type techniques, and you can, control your traction.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Dylan Ferrandis, can overheat his YZ450F out on a track. It's because he's using the clutch. He's not using the clutch because he doesn't have enough power.
Yeah.
He's using the clutch to modulate his power and
Exactly.
control when the traction is down to get maximum efficiency. And because we have so much more dexterity in our finger to pull the clutch than we do in our wrist, especially because our wrist has to be kind of locked in to hold us on the bike. So if everyone's saying, well, you have enough dexterity to control all this stuff with your wrist, I say, no, we don't. We need this other additional input in order to ride these bikes. Graham Jarvis cannot do this types of things he would do on a bike unless it has a clutch.
Yes.
Cody Webb can't do it. Like Andreas Lettenbichler.
Yep.
The list goes on and on and on. Johnny Walker, these people that are in off-road and enduro type things, hard enduro, they can't do some of this stuff unless they have a clutch. And so I hope that the industry really, really looks at that and says, if we're going to go electric, we've got to figure out how to still incorporate a clutch on these bikes so that we're not totally changing everything about the sport. And I think that's overlooked. Too many people simplify it and say, well, electric is the future and they've already got it. And I'm going, maybe electric's the future, but they don't have all the things figured out. So I don't know how you feel about electric, but that's kind of that's my soapbox on that, maybe where it's going and some of the challenges that we're going to have. But it does solve some problems. One of the problems we have with dirt bikes is they're loud, and people don't always like that.
Yes.
It can bug people. And so electric could solve or really, really help that part of it. But there's some other challenges that we need to figure out. I don't know what your feelings are on that.
No, I agree with that sentiment 150%. Hot swappable batteries, integrated clutch. But I think what it does is, number one, it keeps the noise down, which is a huge problem. Most of the tracks that we see are closed down are due to noise ordinance. So that would solve a massive problem. We see tracks open a lot longer, or they have a lot more longevity in their career. Also, I think it adds almost knocks down a barrier of entry for a lot of families who aren't motor savvy, who aren't really, the techs out there that can swap a top end or a spark plug or blah, blah, blah. It's the same as a power drill. You put a battery in, take a battery out, maybe hose it off, lube a chain real quick, and you're done. It takes so much guesswork out of it. And I think it ushers in just a whole new era and a whole new set of a whole new demographic of people that would normally view this sport as either they're not capable motor wise, or it's too noisy, too loud, too scary. And it makes it so much more attainable and so much more digestible for a lot of newcomers. And we need new blood in the sport to bring new money, to bring innovation for products, to expand the sport, make it safer, make it broader, and that whole deal. So I agree with that 110%. And I think it's much needed for our industry. So I would welcome that change 150%.
Yeah, you brought up something that I really haven't thought about, which is just the tunability. So a lot of people are scared to tune these different motors, especially the two strokes. If they're carbureted, they're like, well, I can't make that run. Yep. But if you have a battery powered bike, it's just going to run how it's going to run. It doesn't need to be tuned. And technically you can, you could easily, a manufacturer could easily give the end user, the ability to connect to a smartphone app and kind of fine tune the way that the power is delivered. And so you could give somebody a bike that was, I'm going to use terms that wouldn't really make sense in an electric standpoint, but you could sell someone a bike that has as much power as a 450, but you could then allow them through the electronic control unit, the ECU or whatever, you could allow them to be like, well, this is really a 250 right now. So you buy this for your kid and you lock it out. So maybe it's got as much power as a YZ125.
Exactly.
And then in another year you unlock it and you say, this is a 250F. And then another year, okay, this has as much power as a 450. You could do all of that. Now, it's maybe a bad move for the manufacturers. I mean, maybe they don't want to do that because that might kind of cannibalize some of their sales, but it does give you some additional options, for the consumers long term that just kind of popped in my head as you were talking.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it keeps costs down. If the manufacturers can make one chassis, one powertrain, one set of brakes, one set of tire, all this other stuff, and just tune it at the end of the assembly line to be a 250, 450, 125. I mean, there's so much tooling costs you save, and that's getting into the engineering side of things. There's so much you can save, and I think that could ultimately help the industry. And again, I think it's something that could be super easily implemented. And as much as I'm a diehard internal combustion engine guy, I think this would help the longevity of the sport and help it grow, which ultimately is, all of our goals.
Well, hopefully we have both, because
for sure.
I don't think, like with electric cars.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's a huge push right now for electric cars,
Yes.
but I don't think the electric car is going away totally.
Yes.
I still think there's going to be some internal combustion cars, even 30 years from now.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of them will be electric.
Yes.
And it remains to be seen whether or not that same thing is going to happen with dirt bikes. It might just be that this is kind of like this niche thing where gas motors hang around, and it might not be that big of an issue. But if we did have the option for electric, it does solve a lot of those, some of those problems with noise ordinances, and maybe we can still go ride the gas bikes out in the desert. But hey, if you could have a motocross track right next to, a public park within a couple blocks, because everyone was riding electric bikes, I mean, that could be a cool thing. I'm not totally opposed to it. We just need to figure out some of the kinks.
Exactly. I think this, again, I would love to see where this sport goes in 10 years. Kyle, this is great, man. I'm super glad you gave me enough time to ask you all these questions, get the background on dirtbikechannel.com, see the ins and outs of how we got started. Again, as a fan of the channel, getting the history behind it is super great. If people want to find out more about all the cool stuff you have going on, if they want to tune in to what we got going on, where would they go? How do they get involved? And what's one small piece of advice you could give to maybe an up and coming YouTuber?
Yeah. So the place you can go, you can just search for Dirt Bike Channel basically anywhere. You'll find my website, dirtbikechannel.com. You'll find Dirt Bike Channel on YouTube. Same thing on Instagram, Facebook. I'm kind of there under those terms, Dirt Bike Channel, 3 words, obviously. So you can find me like that. As far as like if you're, up and coming, anybody in social media, like I mentioned before, you just got to be realistic and don't compare yourself to anyone else. If you want to build some sort of a social media following, whether it's on YouTube, it doesn't matter, Twitter, whatever. If, a TikTok, I don't have a TikTok account, but the thing that the advice I would give is just be you, because it's the one thing that you have total exclusive rights on. No one can copy that. And if you try to be somebody else, you're always just going to be lying to yourself and to others. And it's going to come through, to whatever audience you start to attract. My audience isn't huge because I'm not a huge flashy guy. I'm not, doing huge sensational things on my channel. At least I haven't. And I'm not showing, girls in bikinis or any of this other stuff. All the growth that I've had has been organic and slow and real. And that kind of relates to the type of person I am. I'm an introvert. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I'm not like this huge, big personality who's going out here and trying to be the life of the party. And so if you want to build an audience, you want to build a community, YouTube, whatever it is, I think you need to just be true to yourself and offer content that is valuable to you, and do things that are build something. Don't be one of these people who are just taking down. I would say become a builder, not the person who's tearing everything else down, and try to create content that you like, that is valuable to you, and stuff that you are proud of. Because unfortunately, at the end of the day, there's a huge probability that you and your mom are going to be some of the only people that watch this stuff. And you have to be okay with that. If you keep doing it long enough, you're going to build a following. You'll get 500 people, you'll get 1,000 people. If you do it, if you're interesting enough and the content is good enough, then it can grow from there. But if you go in with unrealistic expectations saying, I'm going to start a channel today and I'm going to be paying all of my bills within a year from now, I mean, you'll probably be disappointed, So you need to have a good job, and you need to make content that is real, that you're proud of, because at the end of the day, that's all it's ever going to be. Exactly. Is this something that you're building? Is something you believe in? Is this something that you're okay showing your mom? Is this something that you're okay showing your kids in 10 years from now, in 15 years from now? If it is, then keep doing it. If If it's not, if you can't answer all those questions like yes, 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 then you probably need to adjust some things and just set realistic expectations. Yes. I want people to aim for the stars and hit the moon, but I also want them to understand that there's only been about 14 people that walked on the moon, you know? So like, we just got to be realistic, work your guts out. It's going to be difficult. And you gotta love it. You've got to love it because at a certain point, this is going to it's going to become enough work. And Dave, you know this.
Yes, sir.
Your project is going to become a grind.
Yes.
And if you don't love it before it becomes a grind, man, it's going to be really difficult to push through when you realize, okay, I'm in the thick of this and this is a grind. You know, so maybe you can relate to that, Dave, but that would be my 100%. Those are some, scattered thoughts that I have. It can be a grind. And so you better love it before that.
Exactly. And you guys heard it from a professional. It takes a lot. Be sure to check out all the things that Kyle has going on. The channel is amazing. I love it. As a guy that's been in the sport for a long time, I still learn a lot, and I'm entertained with every video that Kyle puts out. Want to make sure that you guys remember to sign up for the TCE MX and Vlog internship programs going for the whole duration of the outdoor series, where you guys can get hands-on firsthand experience with the professional race team and get fully immersed into the sport that we all love. And this is brought to you by the great people at FXR Moto, Overshear Advice and Planning, Intake Breathing, Flow Vision Goggles, and of course, Evans Power Coolant. We will see you guys on the next one, and be sure to check out what this guy has going on. We'll see you guys soon.